the air with breaking news from here in Washington and what sounds like a big backtrack from President Trump, appearing to drop his lightning rod of a so-called anti-weaponization fund that infuriated some in his own party. We're live at the White House with why he's doing it and why now. Also new today, the new move by Anthropic to let you buy in on the action, going public first out the gate in an AI race that OpenAI now says is not actually a race at all. We'll explain. Then the new developments sparked by new video showing a North Carolina police officer punching a woman during an arrest, even tossing her to the ground. The charges he now faces as he turns himself in. Plus, why the UK is banning two popular American podcasters who have been critical of Israel, and the blow-up inside the country's most-watched news broadcast. Why 60 Minutes' top correspondents accusing his new boss's boss of murdering the show in what sounds like a barn burner of a staff meeting. That's coming up a little bit later on in our show. Hey there, I'm Hallie, and we are starting tonight with a rare reversal for the moment from President Trump, who's backing off his massively controversial so-called anti-weaponization fund after a ton of pushback, including from his own party. You remember this thing, right? To the Trump administration, it was $1.8 billion for the people who they say were victims of weaponization and hate, including January 6th rioters pardoned by the president. They could have applied, potentially gotten money. To critics, this is a slush fund that could have put a lot of that money, your money, taxpayer dollars, into the hands of the president's allies. Even a bunch of Republicans sounded infuriated by this, to the point that some were going to join Democrats, we think, to try to tank this whole thing in Congress. Well, now it looks like the president is backing down. In just the last few minutes here, his Justice Department says it's going to comply with a court order that temporarily blocked the fund anyway. But is there a catch? There may be, and here's what it is. Is this fund gone for good? Or just for now? Let me bring in Monica Alba at the White House to maybe help us answer this, Mon. What do we think, right? I mean, they're already facing this judge's ruling, this court ruling that said, hey, this whole thing's on ice anyway. Right. Now it sounds like they're complying with that forever or just until they get through some of the congressional ickiness?
Exactly, Hallie. And I think what they may be doing here is also potentially using this court ruling as the sort of cover for a potential, as you put it, rare reversal and capitulation here. But nobody here at the White House is saying definitively that this fund is going away forever. Instead, they are just referring to the Department of Justice statement, and they are being very specific in saying that the language there does appear to say that the Department of Justice and the Trump administration will respect the ruling. But to your point, that ruling did include the kind of open-endedness for there to be some kind of appeal that, again, the Trump administration is not saying they are for sure not doing, but they're also not saying that they are still considering that. So to really put this into the TLDR that we know you and your audience love, we're not sure, but I think what this does represent is a very, very significant setback for something that the president had really tried to make a priority, and that he was very disappointed that it was met with such opposition.
Hallie. Yeah, because the signals, Mon, had been, right, that the president was really sticking by this thing. It's not like this controversy is particularly new. It had been building over the past couple of weeks. It feels like maybe what is new is that this could have been a problem for some of the stuff that he wanted to do down the street from where you are on Capitol Hill, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and this is what we really kind of, and when we get into some of the nuts and bolts of how this works, a little bit of the conversation about this so-called anti-weaponization fund was directly linked to a major priority in terms of a bill that was going to be done through a process called reconciliation for actual immigration and DHS funding and some other priorities that this sort of got lumped together with. And even acting Attorney General Todd Blanche was dispatched to Capitol Hill to meet with lawmakers behind closed doors and try to make the administration's case for why they wanted this fund to proceed. And he was really met with extreme opposition, with lawmakers, again, GOP allies of the president, saying that they did not like the way that this was characterized, what this could end up being, and saying that they didn't want to come out and necessarily support it. And so that complicated the entirety of this process. And it raises questions, even some that Democrats are asking now, about whether Republicans are going to ultimately have to come out and get on the record with this, have to vote for it or against it before this potentially goes away, depending on what happens with the courts. Hallie.
Okay, much to watch, all of it developing in just the last couple of hours, not even. Monica Alba there on the North Lawn. Mon, thank you very much. So the other thing that the president has been navigating, dealing with here, is his war against Iran. Where do things stand with peace talks there? Well, if you ask Iran today, they're over. There are no talks. Those talks are cut off. because of Israel's increased attacks on Lebanon. This is according to Iranian media. Take a look at this. The health ministry in Lebanon says new Israeli strikes did a lot of damage at a hospital there. You see the windows broken, all that smoke. Israel's telling people in the southern part of Lebanon to evacuate. You can see, we're going to show you rows and rows of cars. Look at that, trying to get out, as the Israeli military is pressing ahead with its deepest invasion into Lebanon in a generation, really, nearly 30 years at this point. As for the U.S. and Iran, there's supposed to be a ceasefire, but you know what we've seen over the course of the last 18 hours, new rounds of strikes. Hear that? That's sirens going off in Kuwait after the U.S. military attacked Iranian drone and radar sites. So where do things stand, right, in this push for peace? He asked the president, he posted on Truth Social today on his website, that the talks are on at a, in his words, rapid pace. No word on what that means. The Iranian government hasn't responded to that yet. But that comes right after he told our chief White House correspondent, Garrett Haake, on the phone that just because talks are off doesn't mean we're going to go and start dropping bombs over there. But then he also told CNBC's Eamon Javers he doesn't care about the possible collapse of peace negotiations, saying that the talks, he says, started to get very boring. Let me bring in Richard Engel in Tel Aviv. Richard, let's take this in two pieces here, right? Because the bottom line is that things are complicated right now. And let's start with the status of peace talks. Because if you ask the president, he's both bored by them. It doesn't mean he's going to stop bombing right away. But Iran says the talks aren't happening. What's the reality?
The reality is you have multiple wars that are overlapping with multiple parties that have different objectives. So there's supposed to be a ceasefire in place in Lebanon. It has never been abided by. This is supposed to be a ceasefire between Hezbollah and Israeli forces. But things have been going in the opposite direction of a ceasefire. Israeli forces, as you just talked about, and you showed those powerful images, have been advancing deeper and deeper into southern Lebanon, ordering people to leave their homes, saying it's for their own safety so that Israel can carry out attacks against Hezbollah without injuring civilians. But about 17% of the entire country has been declared a military zone. So Lebanese people have been ordered to evacuate from 17% of their country. Then Prime Minister Netanyahu said he was going to carry out a series of massive strikes in Beirut. And those strikes were supposed to start at any time today. With that threat pending, and the military exchange of fire that took place this morning between the U.S. and Iran, Iran said, no more talks, we're over. Then, amid this crisis, I think you could call it, Prime Minister Netanyahu and Trump had a call, agreed that for now, at least, Prime Minister Netanyahu will not carry out those strikes in Beirut, just suspending them. Hezbollah saying it will go into a ceasefire if Israel stops all of its military activity in Lebanon, which is something that Israel has said that it will not do. So the lack of a ceasefire in Lebanon is now become a serious obstacle to finding an overall peace deal in the Middle East, and specifically one between the U.S. and Iran.
And super quickly, Richard, what is the timeline for the next shoe to drop? In other words, what are you waiting to see to give you some clarity on where this goes?
Every day there is a risk that one of these incidents could escalate. 2 ballistic missiles were fired today by Iran at U.S. forces in Kuwait. They were both shot down by American air defenses. If one of them had gotten through, we'd be having a very different conversation right now. If the strikes had happened against the southern suburbs in Beirut, we could have a much more volatile exchange of fire over the Israeli border. So while President Trump is saying he can wait it out, every day there is a risk of a major escalation.
Richard Engel, live for us there in the region in Tel Aviv. Richard, we're glad to have you. Thank you very much. Let's talk tech. Let's talk AI. Let's talk what the head of OpenAI is now saying, that he is not worried after his biggest competitor beat him to the punch to get in on Wall Street. Look at this.
Is there a race to be the first to come public?
I don't think, no, not for that. I think there is a race to deliver the best technology and build the best business.
Sam Altman there, sounded like he's brushing off the big news that Anthropic just filed to let the public own a stake in the company for the very first time. Altman says they're planning to do the same thing over at OpenAI at some point. So here's what we know is about to happen. Anthropic, it's going to go public. It means that people, like investors, everyday investors, can put their money into Anthropic soon. It could be worth $1 trillion. That's a big deal. That means Anthropic could skyrocket to become one of the most highly valued companies in the world. TBD still on the number of shares they're going to offer, how much they're going to cost. No details from Anthropic on that yet. But Hallie is tracking all of this. This kind of landed like a grenade, I think, when Anthropic announced this. Let's talk about the timing here. I think the anticipation was that both of these companies, Anthropic and OpenAI, were going to start trading in the fall. Does it matter who goes first here in the race to go public?
Well, Hallie, let's be very clear. I mean, these two companies, they're competitors in every sense of the word here, right? OpenAI, the maker of ChatGPT, Anthropic operates the cloud platform. And if you think about Wall Street's perspective, they do believe whoever goes first has a bit of an advantage here because you're going to need that capital to build these data centers. You need money to fuel the computing power that operates a lot of these AI systems. And there's a belief that the first company to reach public markets, attract those investor dollars, really has the advantage point. It's also a chance for Anthropic to really set this narrative. The company was recently valued at $965 billion. That makes it the most valuable AI startup, higher than OpenAI. So if it can successfully go public first, it could really establish itself as this definitive pure play AI stock before OpenAI even comes in to play here. So just a lot at stake when you think about the future of both of these companies.
It's also like this interesting, we were trying to think of, is there an analogous moment, right, in this sort of landscape here? And I wonder if there's any sort of Uber, Lyft 2019 era lessons that can be learned from this. Two big competitors looking to go public at the same time, looking to really, in this highly charged technological race.
Yeah, there are some parallels. Lyft went public first in 2019, about a month prior to Uber. Lyft had a better debut than Uber. But the longer-term story, Uber stock is up about 80% since its debut. Lyft stock has actually fallen by that amount since it went public. So while being first can really help generate investor excitement, it doesn't guarantee long-term success. Ultimately, investors want to see growth, profits, a business that can expand. And Uber was able to diversify into areas like food delivery. Uber won while Lyft was mostly focused on ride sharing. So not totally parallels, but something that we're going to have to watch moving forward.
Hallie, good to see you. Thank you very much for all that. We'll be watching. Also tonight, we are learning more after a North Carolina police officer was charged with assault after being captured on camera punching a woman during an arrest. We're going to warn you here. We'll show you the video. It is disturbing. You can see the officer here throws her to the ground, putting his arm up, hits her multiple times. Her family has now, you see somebody else come in now, her family has now retained noted attorney Ben Crump, who says that she was experiencing a mental health crisis when she called the police. We know at least 2 charges she was arrested for here have been dropped at this point. State investigators are looking into this. The officer has now turned himself in. This is his mugshot here. He's charged with 1 count of assault and was released on bond at $10,000. I want to bring in George Solis, who's following this for us. This is video, George, that had gone viral locally before it escalated to what it is now. Tell us more about what we're hearing from the victim's family, how the county's responding as well.
Yeah, I mean, the video absolutely went viral there, Hallie, and the attorney that they've retained, civil rights attorney Ben Crump, now representing the family, as you noted. We've been in touch with the Moore family throughout most of the day today, and they just seem so distraught by all of this. They have been calling all day for the charges against Cherie Moore to be dropped since this video went viral. And today we learned that 2 of the charges that were brought against her, the resisting arrest and the assault, have been, but the breaking or entering charge, as it's noted in court documents, remains in place. Now, as you mentioned, Ben Crump is representing them. They are holding a press conference tomorrow about this incident. He did release a statement on behalf of the family. We'll show it to you here and read it in part. He notes that Cherie Moore called for help during a mental health crisis, as he worded it, but instead of receiving compassion and care, she was met with violence. No person in crisis should ever be subjected to this kind of treatment, saying, "We intend to fight for justice for Cherie and her family every step of the way." And as I mentioned, Hallie, I did speak with her family by phone today, her father and her uncle, both of them too distraught to go on camera and saying that they've now retained the services of Ben Crump and look forward to sharing more of their story, telling me that Cherie Moore is recovering after this encounter with the officer, even days later. And we should note that this video also sparked a number of protests in Shelby, North Carolina, where it took place. And again, more to come on this investigation, Hallie.
George Solis, thank you very much for that reporting. Keep us posted as you learn more. Thank you. We're also looking to Maine, where there's new fallout from a political controversy that could really potentially muddy the chances of Democrats trying to take back the Senate in November. This is a big goal for Democrats. They've got this candidate in Maine on the Democratic side, Graham Plattner. But now, and we think, at this point, he's the likely Democratic nominee. Their primary is coming up super soon here. And there's been this video from his wife after acknowledgments that apparently Plattner sent multiple women sexually explicit texts at the beginning of his marriage. The two of them addressing this just in the last 12, 14 hours or so. Watch this.
The Wall Street Journal and the New York Times ran stories without any evidence besides the gossip from a former staffer. I'm sorry, that's frankly journalistic malpractice. We pushed back on it. They won it. They did it anyways.
So are you confirming that the messages did not exist?
What's that?
The messages, they did not.
I'm confirming that what Genevieve McDonald said in the New York Times is not true.
Former campaign manager is who he's referring to there. Now, this is a big deal, right? This controversy generally, because Plattner had been surging in the polls, and Democrats are really hoping that he can unseat the Republican incumbent there, Susan Collins. So what do Maine voters think of this? Take a listen.
I have issues with Graham Plattner's past, but I'm curious, and basically I'm for anyone who can defeat Susan Collins.
I think because of where we're at right now, I think we got bigger fish to fry.
The comments that he has made in the past, I think his present actions and words reflect that he has changed. I think we need to be open to people learning and growing.
Let me bring in Ryan Nobles here. It's so interesting. Here's what those voters, that wasn't even about this most recent controversy. And I think that tells you something about some of the controversies that Plattner has faced. Walk us through the dynamics here, because his wife put out this video. You've got, as members of Congress are coming back to Washington, they're inevitably being asked about it down the street from where we're sitting to see what's going on with this.
Yeah, he's not backing down in any way, shape, or form. In fact, many of the tactics we see Graham Plattner using here are kind of eerily reminiscent of the way Donald Trump handles scandals like these. He's attacking the media, suggesting that they took things out of context, that everything doesn't seem as what it is. What he hasn't done is refuted any of the specific reporting, that the sexting existed, that it happened while he was in his marriage. But the important thing here is that his wife is standing by him. And she went to social media first to defend her husband and say that what he is running on is more important than some of his past discretions. Take a listen to what she said.
I find it really shameful that there's a group of media outlets and people who are willing to spread gossip instead of talking about real issues that Graham is running on.
And Plattner himself put out a statement that basically admitted to the scandal, but then tried to explain it, said that Amy and I went through something hard because of me. We did the work, and I'm grateful for her every hour of every day. Our opponents want politics to be empty of content and empty of actual change. And beating that is exactly what this movement is about. It's important to keep in mind here, Hallie, this wasn't something that happened a long time ago. He and his wife have only been married since 2023, so it's a relatively recent development. They say they're working through it. They're asking voters to give them the benefit of the doubt.
This isn't a Maine local news story. This is a national story, because this race, I think Democrats were hoping it could be, if there was going to be a race to make them a so-called majority maker, it would be this one, right? That they could end up
number
maybe
one on the
back
list.
to Senate. Yeah.
North Carolina.
So we don't know, and I think it's just too early to say. I know we talked about some of the polls showing him doing well against Susan Collins. I think it was last week. It was in the field. Feels like there's an open question as to how voters see this now, especially as you referenced, maybe in the age of Trump.
Yeah. Well, and he does appear to have some sort of special connection with the voters of Maine. There have been a number of these scandals that he's basically brushed off. His popularity,
tattoo situation.
Exactly, yeah. His popularity has only gotten better. But I do think it's a problem for Democrats nationwide, because he does not have a connection with voters in, say, Georgia or in North Carolina or some of these other states where Democrats are running. And we already see Republican ad makers tying Graham Plattner to candidates in other states. And you can see there's a bit of uneasiness with some Democrats. Take a listen to how they're responding to it.
Yeah, I have concerns. That guy has questions to answer, and that's what campaigns are for. So much is riding on Democrats taking control of the Senate, that this election, if we do not get the votes necessary to take care of the House and the Senate, we will continue to have an out-of-control president.
This race is going to be a contrast between somebody that has put his life on the line for this country against somebody that is literally empowering the moral hollowing out of our nation from the White House.
Obviously not absolving him, but not completely comfortable with what he's doing. Nobody so far has taken their endorsement.
I'm not trying to be all Aaron Sorkin, West Wingy on this, but Janet Mills is the other Democrat who had been in a Democratic primary against Graham Plattner. She dropped out. She's technically still on the ballot, and there's some stuff today where she's saying
she hinted. She's reminding Democratic voters.
She's like, I'm not off the ballot. You know, is that just like? Is there any chance that Mills ends up winning the primary over Plattner?
Well, maybe only in an Aaron Sorkin script.
Okay.
She was so far behind to begin with. She's done zero campaigning.
All right.
There's just not enough time, I don't think. But hey, stranger things have happened. I love a good movie.
Chief Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles. I hear we're hanging out all night tomorrow night for a special coverage. We're going to talk more about that.
You're bringing the snacks, is that true?
I always do. The snacks and the Sauv Blanc.
Yes.
I got you. Ryan, thank you very much. Let's take you back to New Jersey now, where DHS is coming out swinging to defend their ICE operations at a facility that's become a flashpoint for protests. You know, we're talking about Delaney Hall in Newark. As we look ahead to an overnight curfew there tonight, families have been able to get into this site to visit today after scenes like what we're about to show you all weekend long. These protesters clashing with police holding up riot shields, these demonstrators holding up those like traffic barrels, you know, cut them in half and using them as kinds of shields. Protesters say they're showing support for detainees who have complained about poor conditions, spoiled food, allegations that DHS denies. Julia Ainsley has made her way to Newark tonight and is joining us now. So family visitation, Julia, has picked back up, right? But the curfew is still in place. Give us a sense of where things stand.
Yeah, Hallie, behind me, you will see some protesters, but they can't get all the way to Delaney Hall because there's a security perimeter now set up a half a mile from the ICE detention facility. And tonight at 9 p.m., there will be a curfew. The curfew started last night. We have seen tensions diffuse slightly. We have seen some people today yelling at the people here. Really, New Jersey State Police are the people who are getting most of the wrath because ICE is actually back a half a mile down this road. Now, we did hear from New Jersey Governor Mikey Sherrill yesterday about the new policy, or rather reinstated old policy, to allow detainees to now have family visitation inside the facility. Sorry, Hallie, checking over my shoulder because there's a train coming, but I think we're okay here. That has now opened up more people. We actually saw some family members today on their way inside to talk to loved ones inside of the facility. And she says that she's still calling on DHS to try to address concerns over medical care and food inside.
And then talk about DHS framing of this, Julia, because they have been, as we said, you know, saying, basically coming out kind of swinging on this aggressively in defense of themselves. And we're going to keep an eye on any trains coming behind you.
Thank you. Sorry. You'll shout if there's a train behind me. So, yes, there's been a lot of kind of he said, she said when it comes down to what's happening inside. And it's tough, Hallie, because ICE policies keep us from
here it comes. Here it comes. That's it.
Or being able to report. Thank you. I hope you can still hear me. I think
all good, Jules.
I think I'm in a good position.
Nope, I hear you. All right.
If you want to come back to me, Hallie, you can.
Okay, we will. Julia Ainsley, thank you very much. Live TV, man. You know, it happens. You're right there. Julia, thank you. That's where, listen, they've moved the protesters back away from the facility. That's where the reporters are, too. Either way, we're going to take you overseas now because there is potentially some action going down in Southeast Asia. We've been talking about this Laotian cave rescue, a new challenge now for this mission to find 2 more men who've been stuck in the flooded cave. That is because there have been more storms. The rain is making things so difficult. Crews spent the whole weekend trying to pump it out. And look, you see some of the efforts to save 4 of those men. They managed, because the water levels were low before the rain, to basically crawl out. Still, there are 2 people left inside the cave. They'd gone in there nearly 2 weeks ago trying to search for gold. Our Janice Mackey-Frere is in Beijing with more for us. Janice, you talked with one of the divers on this mission to try to rescue these 2. What is the plan for now, considering the weather?
Well, Hallie, the rescue is focusing on these 2 men who are still missing. It's been 12 days since they entered the cave. Divers are using ropes to rappel down these deep shafts, and then there's another team that's in the jungle, and they're exploring holes to find new ways to get into the cave. They're finding even bigger risks. These tunnels are razor sharp, so it's impossible for them to drop down. But they also heard noises, scratching sounds deep inside the cave. And when one of the divers, Josh Richards, used a hammer to knock at the rock, he said there was a sound in response that wasn't an echo. I spoke with him earlier about how people are now looking for any signs of hope.
We still have 2 families that are sitting by the mine entrance in the hope that something will happen. These 2 guys could still be found. And I can tell you that the search crews who are staying on are definitely dedicated to trying to make that a reality.
The plan, according to rescuers, to drain the cave system so that they can reach these chambers beyond where 5 men were already found. Those lower water levels inside the cave over the weekend allowed 4 of them to crawl out on their own. That was after the first survivor was freed by divers. The head of the operation told us earlier, we only have the equipment we brought with us, but I think we did it, he said. For the rest, we will try to do our best. Hallie.
Janice Mackey-Frere, so many people watching and hoping for good news coming there out of Laos. Janice, thank you very much. It is today the first day of Atlantic hurricane season as we are keeping an eye on all things severe weather tonight for some 14 million people across the South and also the Rockies. Look at this. Huge hail, June 1st, man, and this is what they got there in Colorado. More of it is expected to move through with these hailstorms in some spots. Take a look at this. Down further south in Alabama, high wind tossing trees left and right with storms whipping up wind nearly 70 miles an hour in some spots. Bill Cairns is tracking all of this. Isn't it kind of strange to have this kind of hail this late in the season, Bill?
For Colorado, this is like the peak of the hail season. For the other areas of the country, you know, it's usually a little earlier in the season, especially in the South. But as we go into Colorado, this is actually, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, Denver had like a multi-million-dollar hail disaster for a huge hailstorm with denting. This one wasn't big enough for that. It was about 1.5 inch to inch-size hail, so golf ball size. And all of these dots show you where it was. So it was right over downtown Denver. That storm has since rolled out here right along Interstate 70, and it still has hail producing, and there's now a tornado warning with it too, as it's near Stroudsburg. Watch out in Byers too. So again, this is radar indicated, no official tornado on the ground, but that's been a nasty storm all day. We showed you those pictures of the wind damage in Alabama. So we're kind of getting away from the peak of tornado season, and this is when we get a lot of wind damage storms. All of these blue dots are wind damage reports through Alabama today. We have 150,000 people in Alabama without power, and these storms haven't even made it to the big population center of Montgomery. This line is heading your way. Severe thunderstorm warnings along this, so we'll continue to watch and monitor this as we go throughout the rest of the day. As far as other areas of concern, our friends in the northern half of Arkansas and also here in the northern portions of Mississippi, you also have severe thunderstorm watches that are up until about 9 p.m. this evening, especially there over the Ozarks. And you did mention the start of hurricane season. It's 6 months, so it's half the year. And we typically start kind of quiet, and then it really picks up by the time we get to the peak, which is usually September and October. You don't like hurricane
I feel like
season?
you're negging me for saying it's a start of hurricane. I'm just saying it is. It's technically, I realize it's 6 months, but it is.
I feel like it's always hurricane season. It's like it's 6 months long. It's just like, okay.
That's how I feel about election season. It's just,
exactly.
It's
the same thing. So people will always want to know, like, what's going to happen. We don't know where a storm is going to happen. We know that there will be storms, but this is going to be an El Nino setup as we head through the peak of the season. La Nina means bigger, stronger hurricanes and more of them. El Nino means the opposite. And that's why all of the predictions are for a below average season, which no one's going to complain about. But we still could end up with, 1 to 3 major hurricanes. And if they happen to hit land here in the U.S., that would be devastating. So I don't put a lot into all these predictions, Hallie. Because it only takes one.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you not finish your thought. I was agreeing with you. You're right.
I always have a lot of thoughts. We were okay.
All right. Thanks for taking the wrap. Bill Cairns, appreciate you. Thank you. We'll talk more, I know, in the days to come. Coming up, much more to get to on the show, including the major comeback in tennis, what Serena Williams has to say about her next chapter. Plus, could we see a meeting between the Pope and Bad Bunny? The new details just into us from the Archbishop of Madrid. Next. So you know how the FBI has been looking into any connections between the mysterious deaths or disappearances of nearly a dozen scientists and government workers who had access to some sensitive stuff? Well, tonight, police say the body of one of those scientists has been found in New Mexico, in a national forest there. Melissa Casillas was reported missing right around this time last year. It's been widely reported she worked at the Los Alamos National Lab. NBC News has not confirmed that. The FBI has been looking into any connections between about 10 different people who have died or gone missing over the last several years. I want to bring in Camila Bernal now, who's covering this for us. Camila, what do we know?
Yeah, Hallie. So she was actually found by a hiker in the national forest, and this was about 6 miles from her home. We did learn that she'd last been seen along a highway, and that highway does lead to that national forest. Authorities today also saying that she was found with a handgun near the remains, essentially. And they're saying that the cause and manner of death is not going to be revealed yet until the medical examiner completes that investigation. So we don't necessarily know how she died yet. We also know that when she went missing, it was her employee, her supervisor, who essentially reported her missing, called the husband, and then the husband then reported all of this to authorities. Her daughter actually found her keys and her cell phone, which had been wiped, at the home. And then later on, the husband did say that she was under immense stress, but did not specify what kind of stress she was under. Now, in terms of the bigger investigation, we did reach out to the FBI because they are the ones spearheading this investigation into at least 10 people that were found dead or have disappeared. And like you mentioned, these are government workers. These are scientists, some of them involved in nuclear programs in NASA, some of them even having some knowledge of maybe the investigations into UFOs. So, of course, this has created huge speculation and so many theories online, conspiracy theories, and people just wanting to connect the dots and trying to understand how these people disappeared or how they died. Today, when we reached out to the FBI, what they're saying is essentially referring everything to the New Mexico State Police, despite the fact that they are the ones spearheading the bigger investigation here, Hallie.
Camila Bernal, thank you very much for that reporting and for staying on top of this one. Appreciate it. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, a Utah judge is set to open up to the public a key hearing in the case against a man accused of killing Charlie Kirk. It is potentially a big one. Prosecutors are set to lay out what they say is a significant presentation of evidence in their case against Tyler Robinson. His lawyers tried to argue media coverage misrepresents him. The judge is then going to rule if there's enough there to go to trial. So far, Robinson has not yet entered a plea. Number 2, take a look at this. Huge protests in Kenya against a push by the U.S. to try to set up an Ebola quarantine center there. It's a place that would be home, essentially temporarily, to Americans, U.S. citizens, who've been exposed to the virus but who had no symptoms. Kenya's high court temporarily blocked that plan last week. A number of people have died across the DRC and Uganda, with investigations into at least 1,000 infections. So far, no cases in Kenya, but health officials warn the country's health system may not be able to handle the outbreak. That is according to advocates there. Number 3, the girlfriend of the FBI director, Kash Patel, is now suing cable network MS Now. Her lawyers accuse the company of pushing false allegations about her in a report that alleged Patel gave her a security detail to escort a drunk friend home. She argues that implies that she drinks, which she says she does not. MS Now's president says they stand firmly behind their reporting. Number 4, one of the world's biggest pop stars may end up meeting what Catholics see as the living representation of God on earth. We're talking about the Pope and Bad Bunny, the two of them possibly getting face-to-face in Madrid later on this week. They will both be in that city, Bad Bunny for a concert, the Pope, less singing, still big crowds for him as he's set to meet with people there. Nothing is confirmed, but the Archbishop in the area says it is possible that Bad Bunny wants to meet him, so we will see. We'll keep you posted. Number 5, tennis star Serena Williams is going to return to the court in what will be a historic comeback. It'll happen next week in London. She'll play in a doubles tournament there. Some say that playing in that tournament could serve as a kind of Wimbledon warm-up. So we will be watching what Serena can do. Age 44, superstar to say the least. When we come back, some of the new turmoil and new reporting we're getting inside CBS. Why a top correspondent for 60 Minutes is accusing the news division leader of murdering the show. His words. Plus, how police in Pennsylvania say one woman used kids to steal from Wawa. That's next. Two popular left-wing political commentators have now been barred from entering the UK for what they say are their criticisms of Israel. We're talking about the host of the YouTube series The Young Turks and Hassan Piker, progressive influencers with millions of viewers between them. They were supposed to head over to the UK for some speaking gigs this week, but then their travel authorizations were revoked. Now, the British government says it's because their presence in the UK may not be conducive to the public good. No explicit mention of Israel there. It comes after Britain banned Ye, the rapper formerly known as Kanye West, of course, from coming a couple months back after his anti-Semitic social media posts and songs. Sahil Kapoor is covering this one for us. This is interesting here. What is the UK trying to do? The British government is not saying specifically that it's because of these podcasters' criticism of Israel. That is what these podcasters think.
Yeah, that's right, Hallie. The UK government is not being explicit about what exactly these men did or said that led to this ban. But if we look at the backdrop surrounding all of this, it's not difficult to decode. This comes at a time where advocates for Israel and Jewish groups in the UK, such as the Jewish Leadership Council, were calling for them to be banned, while free speech activists had been condemning this idea. Now, both men responded online. Take a look at what they said. Hassan Piker saying, quote, "The UK has revoked my visa as well at the behest of Israel." Cenk Uygur saying, quote, "I've been banned for criticizing Israel." By the way, both these tweets got millions and millions of views, Hallie, so you have to wonder if there's a Streisand effect here, where by trying to squelch these men, that they're ultimately reaching an even bigger stage. I reached out to both men. Cenk Uygur said the UK did not specify to him, even privately, why his visa was revoked. He said, quote, "The UK hasn't told me why they banned me. The Times of London reported that they told them it was because I criticized Israel." He called it Kafkaesque levels of absurdity. And he also cited a Pew poll that showed 60% of Americans have an unfavorable view of Israel, wondering if they too would be banned from entering the UK. Hassan Piker, for his part, responded by sending me this headline in the Times of Israel, saying, quote, "Jewish groups call on the UK to bar dangerous Hassan Piker amid anti-Semitic attacks." So there's no mystery, at least in the minds of these men, as to why they were banned. Now, of course, both of them emphatically deny the claims that they're anti-Semitic, that they say their criticisms are about the government of Israel, not Jewish people, and they say what's dangerous and wrong is to conflate the two things, Hallie.
Sahil Kapoor. Sahil, thanks for being the tip of the spear in our reporting on that. Interesting stuff. We'll keep an eye on it. Before I let you go, though, just because we referenced it, the Kanye thing. I mean, we covered that on this show when it happened. And at this moment, you have to wonder about the free speech discussion that's happening on both sides of the Atlantic.
Absolutely, and I think it'll crank up to an even greater degree in the UK, which of course doesn't have the type of stringent First Amendment protections that we do. That's an ongoing discussion. Apart from Kanye West, there were others, a group of 11 of them, according to BBC News, 11 people who were banned from the UK on similar grounds, who were called far-right agitators by the Prime Minister Keir Starmer, including the US-based anti-Islam activist Valentina Gomez. So this is rare, but not unprecedented for the UK to do something like this, Hallie.
Sahil, thank you. Appreciate you. NBC News covers hundreds of other stories every day, and because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. Out of our Northeast Bureau, police in Pennsylvania want to find this woman who allegedly used kids to steal from a Wawa. We don't know whose kids they are, but she apparently put some orders in online. The kids then took the stuff but never ended up paying. Workers at the store in Hatboro tell our Philly station they've seen her do this before. They want people to help them track her down. Out of our Western Bureau, look at this, the surveillance video from the Bay Area. A car here crashing into a restaurant in the middle of the night. Fortunately, nobody was hurt. Nobody was inside the restaurant. Police say at this point, they've got the car, but not the driver. They are still on the lookout for that person, considering all that damage. And out of our Midwest Bureau, Nebraska health officials say 2 people who'd been quarantining for hantavirus are going to finish out their quarantine back home. The 2 were on that now infamous cruise where the outbreak happened. They've been in Nebraska about a month. They're going to get around-the-clock surveillance until later on in June. Officials say there is no immediate risk to the public now that those 2 are home. Also tonight, more turmoil for CBS News after a top correspondent for 60 Minutes apparently accused the network's editor-in-chief of, I'm quoting here, of murdering the show during a staff meeting today. According to a source in the room, Scott Pelley said that editor-in-chief Barry Weiss was brought in to kill 60 Minutes and is doing exactly that. Pelley also blasted the show's new EP, executive producer, telling Nick Bilton he thinks he has slender qualifications for the job. Pelley and reps for CBS did not immediately return our request for comment, but that says a bunch of network's journalists wrote a letter to Paramount's CEO today, urging him to send a clear message to staff, viewers, and the public that David Ellison respects editorial independence and press freedom. Chloe Malas is joining us now. And lest people think we're doing some sort of navel-gazing media segment, listen, 60 Minutes gets big numbers. They are I think the top-rated news broadcast in the country consistently. They rank right up there with live sports events for things that people watch on Sunday nights. And this meeting has like real drama, apparently. There was like a face-to-face confrontation. The boss like left after 15 minutes. It was very like, it was spicy.
Hallie, it almost sounds like an episode ripped straight from the script of Succession. So you have Nick Bilton, who was appointed last week as the executive producer of 60 Minutes, having this meeting with staffers. And in that meeting, NBC News actually spoke to somebody who attended that meeting today, and they wanted their name to be kept anonymous for obvious reasons. But they said that Nick Bilton was really confronted by Scott Pelley, who has been a veteran journalist for decades, and he's been with 60 Minutes for 22 years. In this meeting, he supposedly confronted Bilton over the firings of those correspondents that you mentioned, as well as the executive editor of the show, who had actually been named the EP of the show last year temporarily. And in this meeting, he allegedly said that Barry Weiss, who is the CBS News editor-in-chief, was, quote, murdering the venerable news magazine. And in this, he, allegedly, Pelley interrupted and said, she is murdering 60 Minutes. She does not love this place. She was brought in to kill it, and she has been doing exactly that. Barry Weiss was not in the room, Hallie, but NBC News, we've reached out to CBS for comment, as well as Scott Pelley, but clearly things got heated. But I just want to point out that before the meeting ended, Bilton, who remained cool, according to our source, during the entire meeting, said, and he looked straight ahead, the source says, he said, enjoy the bagels, before he left the room. I guess there were bagels in the room.
Is that
Hallie.
a euphemism, or was that, okay, he meant the actual breakfast
real
foods
bagels in that
okay.
in that meeting, Hallie. Yeah.
There's a piece of this, Chloe, that we've got to pull on the thread of, which I think is obvious but worth repeating here, which is the political overlay to this, right? I mean, President Trump has been frustrated with 60 Minutes in the past. He has posted, multiple Truth Socials over the course of multiple years, frustrated with the coverage that he feels like he's getting on 60 Minutes. That dynamic has also been called into question by some who are upset by what they think and what they see Barry Weiss doing here.
Right. So let's just talk about the fact that David Ellison, who runs CBS, he runs Paramount Skydance, and he's in the middle of this merger with Warner Brothers Discovery. His father, Larry Ellison, is one of Trump's biggest and most lucrative supporters. And so many people feel as though he put in Barry Weiss to run CBS News because he was trying to curry favor with President Trump. There is no evidence from NBC News that has happened, but you've seen how Stephen Colbert is no longer having his late show at CBS. Many people feel as though that had political implications there, which CBS said was only a financial decision. But again, a lot of questions as to what is going on within CBS News and the broader company as a whole. Hallie.
Chloe Malas, thank you very much for watching it all. We'll see how this one goes. Appreciate it. Still to come, why the real MVP of the upcoming NBA Finals could be somebody off the court. We'll explain. Okay, NBA Finals. Wednesday night. New York Knicks, San Antonio Spurs. But the real MVP may be somebody off the court. Apparently this guy, WWE star and comedian Dan Housen, put a curse on the Knicks before the playoffs this year. I'm just telling you, I don't know, I'm not saying you have to believe it. I'm just going to tell you about the stats. They won one game after the Hex, but lost the next two by 1 point both times. That's the first time that's ever happened in NBA history. Now, he lifted the curse 2 weeks later in a cameo video.
The New York Knicks, I guess you could be uncursed temporarily until I decide otherwise. Temporary truce of some sort.
Okay, I'm not saying it's related, but the Knicks have been on an 11-game winning streak ever since then. If they win the finals, it's going to end this crazy drought, 50-year title drought, right? Think like Red Sox, Cubs, baseball. That's the kind of thing we're talking about here. That's the scope and that's the scale. Sam Brock is covering this one for us. Curse aside, convince me, a non-New Yorker here, that the hype around the Knicks and like all the attention and all that is not simply because people in New York love to talk about things in New York. Respectfully.
Sure. But respectfully, can Danhausen please just leave the Knicks uncursed? That's all I'm asking here, Hallie. In terms of the context for this, Victor Wembanyama, I'm going to convince you right now, he's the emerging center for the San Antonio Spurs. There's a few athletes in the history of sports, Tiger Woods in golf, Shohei Ohtani in Major League Baseball. Athletes do things and you're like, I can't process what I'm watching right now. Victor Wembanyama is going to be the face of the NBA. This is a 7'5" Frenchman who's taking step-back threes and breaking guys down off the dribble. He's chasing players up and down the court and throwing his arm up near the hoop and affecting the trajectory of a three-point shot 25 feet away. There is no other secret weapon, and look at that image. The emotion, how much he cares. He just took all of his teammates around his arms. The human interest component of this, sky high. Now, you also did mention the Knicks. So there is a reason that MSG is the world's most famous arena. It's not Paycom Center in Oklahoma City. It's not the Frost Bank Center in San Antonio. It's in New York, Hallie. This team and its passionate fan base has just watched the Knicks go on an 11-game winning streak that is incomparable statistically. In the history of the NBA, they have won by 262 points over that 11 games. Their average margin of victory, 23.8 points. It has never been done in the NBA. The synchronicity, the togetherness of all of these parts. Look, they're even painting the subway blue and orange. You got to love this city, don't you? I know you feel the same way, Hallie.
Yeah. I mean, I'm into it. It's not the Philadelphia Eagles, but I can get behind an interesting series of games as we will be covering the NBA Finals. I will also note, though, that hasn't the winning streak also been consistent ever since Carl Anthony Towns appeared with Anne Hathaway in The Devil Wears Prada 2? So can Anne Hathaway also be a good luck charm here?
That could be coincidental. I think it's OG Anunoby, actually, that got the boost from Anne Hathaway. But let's talk about the price on the tickets. It's somewhere in the range average of $7,000 for a ticket at MSG. The courtside seats are approaching $300,000+. Good luck with that. You could buy a house or you could buy seats at MSG. Pick your choice.
Are you going? Are you going to try to get a sign?
I don't have $300,000. I'm going to try to go with the credential, though.
All right, very good. Sam Brock, we'll look for you reporting live Wednesday night from the NBA Finals. Sam, appreciate you. Thank you so much. And thank you, as always, for watching. That is a wrap for this hour. This is HJN on NBC. We are coming on the air with breaking news from here in Washington and what sounds like a big backtrack from President Trump, appearing to drop his lightning rod of a so-called anti-weaponization fund that infuriated some in his own party. We are live at the White House with why he's doing it and why now. Also new here in Washington, Iran cutting off any conversations about peace, where that stands as Israel invades deeper into Lebanon. Plus, the new move by Anthropic to let you buy in on the action, going public first out the gate in an AI race that OpenAI now says isn't actually a race at all. We'll explain that. The developments sparked by a video just out showing a North Carolina police officer punching a woman during an arrest, even tossing her to the ground. The charges he now faces as he turns himself in. And the new controversy that could threaten Democrats' hopes of taking back the Senate. What voters in Maine think about Graham Plattner coming up a little bit later on in the show. Hey there, I'm Hallie, and we are starting tonight with a rare reversal for the moment from President Trump, backing off his hugely controversial anti-weaponization fund, as he calls it, after a ton of pushback, including from his own party. You remember this thing, right? This is the bucket of money to the Trump administration, $1.8 billion for people who they say were victims of weaponization and hate, including January 6th rioters pardoned by the president. Critics, however, call it a slush fund. They say that could put a lot of your money, taxpayer dollars, into the hands of the president's allies. Even a bunch of Republicans sounded infuriated by this, to the point that some are going to join Democrats to try to tank this thing in Congress. Well, now it appears the president is backing down. His Justice Department says it's going to comply with a court order that temporarily blocked the fund anyway. But you may ask, Hallie, is there a catch? There may be a catch. Is this fund gone for good or simply gone for now? Let me bring in Monica Alba at the White House. I don't mean to ask an unknowable question, Monica, but what do we think? I mean, is this fund going away completely, or is this a strategic move by the Trump administration to put it on ice now only to revive it later?
Right. They haven't said that this is going away completely, Hallie, and so I do think that there could be a bit of wiggle room here as the White House or the Trump administration overall kind of examines its options here. We also haven't heard from President Trump yet directly on this. Remember that he really defended this fund over the last couple of weeks after it was introduced, and we do also know that Speaker Mike Johnson was at the White House earlier today, ostensibly talking to the president about this very fund and other matters. So the president, it is rare rare for him to sort of admit defeat on something like this, but the silence potentially could be interpreted as the White House saying that, yes, for now, this was not something that they were able to pursue, even though it had been a priority for the president. And they had gotten a lot of opposition from Republican allies. And that's why the White House and the Department of Justice even saw Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche dispatched to Capitol Hill to meet with lawmakers in person behind closed doors to see if he could convince them to get on board with the concept. And he was really met with a lot of opposition, and the backlash really has only grown from there, Hallie.
What about the court piece of it? Does that go away now that the administration is making this move, or does that still proceed apace on its own track?
And that's an open question as well, because we had been asking the White House ever since we saw this ruling from the court in the last couple of days whether there were plans to appeal it or what the Department of Justice was going to do. And the White House would simply refer us to the DOJ and not go beyond that. And today, when we asked the same question, they simply pointed to the statement saying that they would abide by the ruling. But this is a temporary ruling that does give the Department of Justice some time to potentially respond. It only temporarily stops the fund from continuing its work while they figure out what they were going to do about the members who were going to be on the commission to decide and review these on a case-by-case basis. So we don't know is the short answer. It's possible there could still be an appeal here. And if the president decides that he wants this to somehow continue through the court system, he could direct that. Though for now, the Department of Justice and the White House do seem to be abandoning this idea for now.
But let's say they abandon it for good, Mon, and that's the thing. Like, remember, this all stems from that IRS settlement, that whole other kind of can of worms. Does this mean that the president may try to go back and reopen that to get something else? Because part of the resolution to the IRS thing was the creation of this anti-weaponization fund, which is now going away.
Yeah, and a huge pot of money that we're talking about here. Remember, initially in the settlement, it was possible that the president was going to pocket some of this money. And then he says, according to him, that he basically is foregoing that so that this other larger fund could be set up for other people who were going to make these applications if they feel that they were wronged by the Biden administration. So that's a really good question, too. This money, the actual fund and what would be appropriated here, and that's why there's a role to play for Congress, is a bit of a question mark depending on what actually happens here. But I do think if the White House stays quiet on this, it is because maybe they do end up realizing that they don't have any recourse on this, and they do sort of just quietly let this slip away.
Monica Alba, thank you very much for that reporting live for us on the North Lawn tonight. Thanks, Mike. Let's talk about what else the president's thinking about, and that is, of course, the war against Iran. Where do peace talks stand? Well, if you ask Iran, nowhere. They say they're over for now after Israel's stepped-up attacks on Lebanon, according to Iranian state media. Take a look at this here. The health ministry in Lebanon says new Israeli strikes created this destruction at a hospital. You can see there the windows broken, a lot of smoke, all that smoke billowing in from outside, with Israel telling people in parts of southern Lebanon to evacuate. Look at this, rows and rows of cars trying to get out here as the Israeli military presses ahead with its deepest invasion into Lebanon in a generation. What you're looking at, the invasion into Lebanon further, Israel's really deepest in more than 20 years, that's kind of a non-starter for Iran. That's why they're blaming talks being cut off here, even as the U.S. and Iran have exchanged a new round of strikes. Those are some of the sirens going off in Kuwait after the U.S. military attacked Iranian drone and radar strikes. As of right now, it's hard to say where exactly things do stand in this push for peace, these talks, right? If you ask the president, got to say, it depends on when during the course of the day you asked him. He posted on Truth Social at one point, 1:43 p.m., that talks are proceeding at a rapid pace. The Iranian government hasn't responded to that yet. But that came right after he told our chief White House correspondent, Garrett Haake, on the phone that just because talks are off doesn't mean we're going to go and start dropping bombs all over there. He also told CNBC's Eamon Javers he doesn't care about the possible collapse of peace negotiations, that talks started to get very boring. And then we just found out he told ABC News' John Carl that a deal could come in the next week, that things are looking good, looking good. Let's bring in Courtney Cube. Are they looking good?
Oh, I mean, it's all very clear where things stand, right? I mean, from hour to hour, it's very clear that it's going to be either a complete peace deal or complete war. We have no idea where things stand. All we can do is look at what's been happening on the ground. As you said, we've seen the U.S. military once again strike sites inside Iran in the last 24, 48 hours.
They're still saying they're defensive.
Yeah, they are. But keep in mind here, these back and forths back and forth between, in this case, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps in Iran and the U.S. military, they continue to occur and have been for several weeks. Each side sort of pushes the limits on how far they can go, how close they can fly their drones, how close the U.S. military can fly their aircraft, until there is some sort of an escalation and a provocation that leads to what we saw with the U.S. military taking strikes, Iran retaliating. And frankly, in some cases, it's vice versa. Iran strikes first and the U.S. retaliates.
And then what about the Lebanon factor? Because that's part of this, too.
Yeah, so that's the biggest factor of that right now is not just, as you just said, that Israel has now pushed further into Lebanon than we have seen in a quarter century, over 25 years now, but is the impact that this could have on these very confusing ceasefire talks, whether this is even a ceasefire anymore.
I was just going to ask, are we still calling it a ceasefire?
I mean, the U.S. is calling it a ceasefire. I think what we need to recognize is what this actually is, again, what we're seeing on the ground here, and that is there has been a pause in the ongoing combat operations by against Iran. And in that pause, the U.S. military and the Iranian military continue to operate in very close quarters. While that is happening, there are continued provocations on each side that have led to escalations and have led to strikes by both. The ceasefire really is only for major combat operations inside Iran, but it is not extended out into the Gulf, the Persian Gulf, into the Strait of Hormuz, the Gulf of Oman. As you saw, what was significant about the strikes that the U.S. took over the weekend is there was one location, Qasem Island, that was sort of at the beginning of the Strait of Hormuz from the Persian Gulf in. The other was sort of the beginning from the Gulf of Oman. So it's both sides of the Strait of Hormuz now the U.S. struck.
Courtney Kube, we're glad to have you breaking all that down for us tonight. I'm sure we'll talk again tomorrow. Appreciate you, Court. Thanks. Let's talk tech now. Let's talk money. Let's talk about what the CEO of OpenAI is saying, that he's not super worried after his main competitor beat him to the punch to get in on Wall Street. Listen to this.
Is there a race to be the first to come public?
I don't think, no, not for that. I think there is a race to deliver the best technology and build the best business.
That was Sam Altman responding to the huge news that his company's rival, Anthropic, just filed to let the public own a stake in the company for the very first time. Altman says his company's planning to do the same thing at one point. So here's what we know is about to happen. Anthropic's going to go public, which means, regular people, investors would be able to buy in on Anthropic, a company that could soon be worth $1 trillion. That means Anthropic could skyrocket to become one of the most highly valued companies in the world. Now, we don't know yet how much the share is going to be, how much the share price is going to be, how many shares are going to offer, et cetera. There's still a lot that's TBD here. But I want to bring in Hallie, our business correspondent, and it's coming. So we've got Anthropic. We know that OpenAI is still planning to go public at some point. SpaceX is going to go public. These are these really big companies, these tech and space companies that could be at the forefront of like the next, they're already at the front of the next wave of technology. But when you look at the Wall Street factor, it's a huge deal.
Yeah, it is. Like you were saying, Hallie, a lot of money at stake here. And from the Wall Street perspective, whichever company goes first, they're going to have the advantage of attracting those investor dollars. You look at a company like Anthropic, it's the maker of the Claude chatbot, OpenAI, a parent company of ChatGPT, and Anthropic was just valued at $965 billion, even before investors start pouring in their own money. That makes Anthropic the most valuable AI startup in the world, even surpassing OpenAI. So if it can successfully IPO, hit the public markets, have this great debut, it can really establish itself as this definitive pure play AI stock before OpenAI even arrives to the scene here. So even though Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, says it's not a race, from Wall Street's perspective, it pretty much is at this point. And both companies were expected to go public in the fall. Now that Anthropic's filed that paperwork, as soon as the SEC gives the go-ahead, we could be able to purchase some of those shares here. So a really big moment in the AI race at large. And obviously, like you were saying, the money here is just astronomical.
Does it actually matter who goes first?
I think, look, over the long term, it's going to be whichever company can sell their story best. At the end of the day, investors want to see profit. They want to see growth. They want to see ways that the business can sustain. However, the initial offering, yeah, that probably will generate a lot of investor appetite and a lot of excitement. But when you think about the sustainability of a stock and how it will perform over the next 5, 10, 15 years, it's all about that growth story, baby. And if you don't have that, then you're not going to be able to really survive on Wall Street too long.
Hallie Canal, super interesting. Thanks for watching all of it for us tonight. Appreciate it. Also tonight, we are learning more after a North Carolina police officer was charged with assault after being caught on camera punching a woman during an arrest. We want to warn you that the video here is disturbing. We'll show it to you once here. The officer throws her onto the ground. You see this, puts his arm up, begins hitting her multiple times. Her family has now retained well-known attorney Ben Crump, who says she was experiencing a mental health crisis when she called the police. We know at least 2 charges she was arrested for here have now been dropped. State investigators are still looking into all this. The officer involved has turned himself in. This is his mugshot. He is charged with 1 count of assault. He was released on $10,000 bond. George Solis is following this for us. George, what else can you tell us?
It's a very disturbing incident and still so many questions left to be had. We've been in touch with Cherie Moore's family today, who is demanding all of these charges be dropped. As you mentioned, 2 of the 3 that she was facing during this incident have been dropped, and that was the resisting charge and the aggravated assault. She is still facing charges for breaking or entering. As you mentioned, civil rights attorney Ben Crump has been retained by the family. There's actually a press conference that is expected tomorrow to give us a little bit more detail into what happened. We still don't know the full story of what transpired before what you see on that doorbell camera. Now, in that statement, Ben Crump, on behalf of the family, says Cherie Moore called for help during a mental health crisis, but instead of receiving compassion and care, she was met with violence. No person in crisis should ever be subjected to this kind of treatment. And he goes on to say, we intend to fight for justice for Cherie and her family every step of the way. And Hallie, as I mentioned, I've been in touch with her family most of the day. They declined interviews as they've been working with their attorney today to set up this press conference. But they did tell me that she was experiencing this mental health crisis and that she was experiencing homelessness at this time. But obviously still many more questions as this investigation moves forward.
And George, this is a video that had gone viral initially as it now has escalated into what it is now, this national controversy.
That's right, Hallie, and we've been going through some of the court documents. We've actually learned this is not the first time that Cherie Moore and this officer, Carson Hyder, had some interaction. I guess from looking at some of the documents last year, she pled guilty to resisting an arrest charge where the officer was actually the complainant, the person that filed the police report. So there's obviously some history there that will need to be looked into. As far as the police department goes, well, they issued a statement saying, in part, while this incident does not reflect the values of the Shelby Police Department, it does reinforce the importance of holding ourselves to the highest standard of conduct, going on to say to protect our community with courage and serve our community with compassion. Right now, Hallie, there's actually a city council meeting where this subject is brought up. A number of people they're asking for justice, for asking for support for the family right now. We're keeping a close eye on that. Of course, we'll let you know if anything develops there.
Okay, George Solis, thanks for keeping an eye on it. New fallout tonight, too, from a political controversy that could muddy the potential chances of Democrats taking control of the Senate come November. We're talking about Graham Plattner. He's the likely Democratic nominee there in Maine. Big deal race. This is a big focus for Democrats here with his campaign, saying he sent multiple women sexually explicit texts at the beginning of his marriage. An acknowledgement coming after the New York Times and Wall Street Journal first reported that Plattner's wife told the campaign about the messages last summer. Here's how the couple responded, standing together just about 18 hours ago to address that.
The Wall Street Journal and New York Times ran stories without any evidence besides the gossip from a former staffer. I'm sorry, that's frankly journalistic malpractice. We pushed back on it, they won it, they did it anyways.
So are you confirming that the messages did not exist?
What's that?
The messages, they did not.
I'm confirming that what Genevieve McDonald said in the New York Times is not true.
The Dems, as we said, have been really hoping that Plattner would be the one to be able to unseat the Republican in this race, incumbent Senator Susan Collins in the state of Maine. All of it really incredibly high profile. Plattner had been ensnared in controversies previously, but even then he was getting some support from voters, polling shows. Here's what some Maine voters told NBC News back in April.
I have issues with Graham Plattner's past, but I'm curious, and I'm for anyone who can defeat Susan Collins.
I think because of where we're at right now, I think we got bigger fish to fry.
The comments that he has made in the past, I think his present actions and words reflect that he has changed. I think we need to be open to people learning and growing.
Let me get to Mel Zanona, who's live for us on Capitol Hill. April feels like 7 centuries ago, Mel, but the point of that is just that this idea that even then there had been these controversies that Plattner was involved in, and voters still felt like this was something that they were obviously taking into consideration. Talk about why this race is so important.
Yeah, this is going to be one of the most expensive and competitive Senate races in the entire country this year, because it really is Democrats' best chance to flip a Senate seat in the fall. So that's why there's been so much attention on who this Democratic nominee is. But so far, despite all these controversies, Graham Plattner has really been surging in the polls, perhaps because of some of those clips you played from Maine voters back in April. But after this latest controversy where it came out that he had been apparently sending some sexually explicit text messages to other women early on in his marriage, both Graham Plattner and his wife have come out and defended their marriage and even attacked the media. I want you to take a listen to some of the video statement that Amy, Graham Plattner's wife, put out over the weekend.
I find it really shameful that there's a group of media outlets and people who are willing to spread gossip instead of talking about real issues that Graham is running on.
And Graham Plattner also put out a statement seeming to acknowledge some of his mistakes without directly referencing those text messages. He said in a statement, "Amy and I went through something hard because of me. We did the work, and I'm grateful for her every hour, every day. Our opponents want politics to be empty of content and empty of actual change. And beating that is exactly what our movement is about." So Plattner clearly trying to turn the page on this controversy and focus on the issues that have really fueled his progressive grassroots campaign.
And you've got some other new reporting from some Plattner supporters, Mel?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I caught up with Bernie Sanders.
Okay.
He's a progressive senator. He said he is still standing by his endorsement of Plattner. He said we shouldn't be focused on the Plattner's marriage, and we should instead be focusing on the issues that Mainers care about, like affordability and health care. My colleague Brennan Bleach also caught up with him and got him on camera. Here's what he had to say.
Well, I think he can win, absolutely, and we desperately need somebody like him.
So clearly what really matters here, though, is what Maine voters think. But as I mentioned before, some of these past controversies, including him getting a Nazi tattoo and then later saying he didn't know what it was and having it covered up, have not really put a dent in his popularity. There was a poll before this weekend, before these new controversies came out, that showed him leading Republican Senator Susan Collins of Maine. And so we'll see whether this latest controversy does anything, whether it sticks or not. But so far, at least Democrats here in the Senate standing by him. Hallie.
Mel Zanona live for us there on the Hill. Mel, good to see you. Thank you. Let's take you to Jersey now, where we are just learning at least 50 people have been charged for violating the curfew outside a facility that's become really a flashpoint for immigration demonstrations. This is according to two senior law enforcement officials. Talking about Delaney Hall in Newark, as DHS is coming out swinging today to defend operations there. The overnight curfew had been put in place after scenes like these over the weekend. People clashing with police with those riot shields up, protesters with a couple of them with those like cut in half traffic barrels there. Newark's mayor says public safety is being put at risk. Protesters say they're showing support for detainees who have complained about unsanitary conditions and spoiled food. DHS denies those allegations. Let me bring in Julia Ainsley, who's in Newark tonight. Julia, talk us through some of the latest information here, including that new reporting you have on the curfew.
Yeah, that's right. So we heard from New Jersey Governor Mikey Sherrill earlier saying that she is hopeful because family visitation has opened back up. In fact, just today I saw two women going in to visit with a loved one who was inside Delaney Hall. She had to come right up here to this perimeter. You're going to see the protesters behind me. No one can go beyond this perimeter unless they're a family member going to make a visitation like that, because they've moved the perimeter a half mile now down the road from Delaney Hall, which is behind me. And they've imposed that 9 p.m. curfew. But the governor was hopeful that with the family visitation, she might see more peace tonight. In fact, she called for peace. New Jersey State Police are enforcing that perimeter. And she also called for continued better medical care and sanitary conditions. But meanwhile, we're hearing from DHS in a much harsher tone, saying that they must maintain order and that they are going to be against any rioters tonight. Now, this is, of course, after 50 people, as you mentioned last night, were arrested, not necessarily for violence, but for breaking that 9 p.m. curfew. In previous nights, we saw other people arrested for violence. Those numbers were somewhere between 3, highest was 9 on one night. But it seems that the tension here has been coming down, especially because they opened up to some family visits today, because people were worried earlier about people who they couldn't even talk to inside.
I was going to ask about that because it does seem as though, where this goes next year, the governor had come out just in the last 24 hours and basically called for calm.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, Hallie, what you're seeing here is just the flashpoint of people pushing back on the immigration detention and enforcement tactics of this administration. But you haven't seen a lot of these protests since Minneapolis with those fatal shootings. Now a lot of focus is on detention because there are still nearly 60,000 people detained, many of them without the ability to be released on bail. In fact, we just reported late last week that ICE had bought warehouses to hold up to 100,000 people. They're now eyeing selling many of those because they don't think they're going to need to hold that many people. But for those that they do still operate and they contract out, like this one, Delaney Hall, there's really a buckling down here that they don't want to give in to protesters' demands. And that's something that we've heard from Markwayne Mullin. In fact, today at an event in Texas, he said there will be zero tolerance for any verbal or physical threats to law enforcement during exactly what you see behind me. And so tonight we'll be watching, especially after that 9 o'clock curfew goes in place.
Julia Ainsley, thanks for being there. To Southeast Asia now, and a new challenge for the search and rescue mission in Laos to find 2 more men stuck in a flooded cave. That's after here's the problem, the weather. It's raining. That is a huge problem, especially because this new round of storms refilled the cave with water after crews had spent so much time pumping it out. In fact, at one point before all the rain came down, you can see we told you about this, of course, last week when they saved 4 of the men inside the cave. Crews, however, still cannot find 2 other people who had gone into the cave nearly 2 weeks ago trying to search for gold. Janice Mackey-Freyer is joining us now from Beijing. Janice, you talked with one of the divers on this mission to try to rescue these 2. What is the plan for now, considering the weather?
Well, Hallie, the rescue is focusing on these 2 men who are still missing. It's been 12 days since they entered the cave. Divers are using ropes to rappel down these deep shafts, and then there's another team that's in the jungle, and they're exploring holes to find new ways to get into the cave. They're finding even bigger risks. These tunnels are razor sharp, so it's impossible for them to drop down. But they also heard noises, scratching sounds deep inside the cave. And when one of the divers, Josh Richards, used a hammer to knock at the rock, he said there was a sound in response that wasn't an echo. I spoke with him earlier about how people are now looking for any signs of hope.
We still have 2 families that are sitting by the mine entrance in the hope that something will happen. These 2 guys could still be found. And I can tell you that the search crews who are staying on are definitely dedicated to trying to make that a reality.
The plan, according to rescuers, to drain the cave system so that they can reach these chambers beyond where 5 men were already found. Those lower water levels inside the cave over the weekend allowed 4 of them to crawl out on their own. That was after the first survivor was freed by divers. The head of the operation told us earlier, we only have the equipment we brought with us, but I think we did it, he said. For the rest, we will try to do our best. Hallie.
Janice Mackey-Freyer, so many people watching and hoping for good news coming there out of Laos. Janice, thank you very much. Tonight, back here at home, at least 14 million people across the South and the Rockies are bracing for really intense weather and a ton of wind. And look at this, June 1st, hail in Colorado, peak of their hail season there. But still, this is big stuff, right? More of it maybe on the way, too, as you've got this system that is making its way across the country. Alabama is facing a lot of wind, trees bending left and right all over the place because of the storms there. Let me bring in meteorologist Bill Cairns, who's joining us now. It's a potpourri.
It is.
Potpourri of messy stuff. How's that for?
That's excellent. Yeah, cornucopia. So if you watch enough of this, you see, there's all types of weather video, and every year we show you the same thing. But I am a sucker for the hail in the pool video, especially this one, because this was in a high rise in Denver. You can see it splashing there into the pool. This was about golf ball size hail that went right down through the downtown area a little after noon today. It wasn't big enough to do damage, but it definitely caused scenes like this, which It almost looks like snow-covered roads in June, but that's just a lot of hail mixed in a river of a torrent of water from a powerful thunderstorm that rode through. And you can see some of the leaves and branches coming down along with it. And hail can be a huge crop killer. As now we get into the summer months, that's something that we always watch for in the middle of the country. If we get big hailstorms, they just wipe out farmers' fields. So the other story is we showed you that wind damage out of Alabama. All of these blue dots were where we had wind damage reports. We had over 90 of them, and we currently have over 150,000 people without power in Alabama. And those storms are heading south. We have a new severe thunderstorm watch that's been issued for southern Alabama, a section of North Florida, and a little portion here of Georgia. That's through 10 o'clock. And our friends in western Kansas are now under a severe thunderstorm watch until about midnight. There's where that hail was that we just showed you the video of, right through downtown Denver. Then it extended out on Interstate 70 a little bit here. We had a serious storm with a tornado warning. No tornadoes were reported near Bennett, but we did also have some pretty large hail there. And as far as those wind damage reports, all of the blue dots, it started up around Huntsville and went straight down through central Alabama. They're dying out a little bit now south of Montgomery, so I don't think we're going to lose too many more people with power. It's also the first day of hurricane season, and the biggest question people want to know is how bad is it going to be? Where are the storms going to hit? No one can tell you where they're going to hit, but you can get a general idea of if we're going to have it, above average or below average. We're looking at a super El Nino heading this way. They're kind of rare. It's been a while. You typically, on average, between 10 to 15, even 20 years can go between episodes. And a super El Nino means that the water is very warm in the Pacific, which means the globe is going to be especially warm. And the way it impacts hurricanes is it means the winds that blow, the jet stream up where you fly, they tear apart hurricanes out in the Atlantic and the Caribbean. That's why we're expecting the numbers to be down this year. As far as when we get to winter, that's when we'll have even bigger impacts. Typically in strong El Ninos, watch out, California especially. Usually you get huge rainstorms, a lot of flooding problems, and we'll also get severe weather even during the winter over the southern half of the country. And it usually means it's pretty warm and not great for ski season, especially in areas of the east. So as far as this hurricane season goes, Hallie, 55% chance of below normal, 35% chance of normal. And the big thing is how many hurricanes. Those are the things that do the most damage. Right now, it's looking like we could get maybe half the number of hurricanes and hopefully half the number of major hurricanes, too. So I don't think any of us will complain. We've had a bunch of active years and a lot of bad landfalls, so maybe we'll get lucky.
I know. You're hoping. Fingers are crossed, right? All it takes is one bad one, so you're hoping for the best in that one. Bill Cairns, thanks, pal. Appreciate it. When we come back, more to get to here on the show, including those huge protests in Kenya over a quarantine center the U.S. wants to build, but the Ebola outbreak is making health officials there nervous. Plus, is Taylor Swift trying to enter her EGOT era? What we know about her new song next. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, a Utah judge will open up to the public a key hearing in the case against a man accused of killing Charlie Kirk. It's a big hearing. Prosecutors are going to lay out what they call significant presentation of evidence in their case against Tyler Robinson, the accused assassin. His lawyers tried to argue media coverage misrepresents him. The judge is then going to rule if there's enough there to go to trial. Robinson has not yet entered a plea. Number 2, you see huge protests in Kenya against an attempt by the U.S. to set up an Ebola quarantine center there that would house U.S. citizens who had no symptoms but who'd been exposed to Ebola. Kenya's high court temporarily blocked that plan last week. Dozens of people have died across the DRC and Uganda, with investigations into at least 1,000 infections. So far, no cases in Kenya, but health advocates there warn that the country's health system cannot handle the outbreak. Number 3, one of the world's, have you heard about this? Bad Bunny wants to meet the Pope, and guess what? It may actually happen. It's totally possible that they could do that in Madrid. They're both going to be there. Bad Bunny for a concert, the Pope with his people, different kind of concert, still big crowd vibes. Nothing is confirmed yet, but the Archbishop there says that it is possible. We'll see. Number 4, take a look. These once extinct birds are now flying again in Japan. 8 ibis birds raised in a conservation center after China brought them back to life through artificial breeding. Donated the pair to Japan. 10 more birds are set to be released into the wild soon. Number 5, you think Taylor Swift is trying for an EGOT, the O, for an Oscar? She's doing a new original song for Toy Story 5. You might have seen this billboard or remember the countdown that randomly popped up on her site back in April. The movie comes out June 19th, but fans will be able to listen to the new song, I Knew It, I Knew You, this Friday. Okay, so you know how the FBI has been looking into any connections between the mysterious deaths or disappearances of nearly a dozen scientists and government workers who had access to sensitive stuff? Well, tonight, police say the body of one of those scientists has been found in New Mexico in a national forest there. Melissa Casillas was reported missing right around this time last year. It has been widely reported she worked at the Los Alamos National Lab. NBC News has not confirmed that. That FBI investigation spans the deaths or disappearances of at least 10 people. I'm going to bring in Camila Bernal for more on this. Camila, what do we know?
Yeah, Hallie. So she was actually found by a hiker in the national forest, and this was about 6 miles from her home. We did learn that she'd last been seen along a highway, and that highway does lead to that national forest. Authorities today also saying that she was found with a handgun near the remains, essentially. And they're saying that the cause and manner of death is not going to be revealed yet until the medical examiner completes that investigation. So we don't necessarily know how she died yet. We also know that when she went missing, it was her employee, her supervisor, who essentially reported her missing, called the husband, and then the husband then reported all of this to authorities. Her daughter actually found her keys and her cell phone, which had been wiped, at the home. And then later on, the husband did say that she was under immense stress, but did not specify what kind of stress she was under. Now, in terms of the bigger investigation, we did reach out to the FBI because they are the ones spearheading this investigation into at least 10 people that were found dead or have disappeared. And like you mentioned, these are government workers. These are scientists, some of them involved in nuclear programs in NASA, some of them even having some knowledge of maybe the investigations into UFOs. So, of course, this has created huge speculation and so many theories online, conspiracy theories, and people just wanting to connect the dots and trying to understand how these people disappeared or how they died. Today, when we reached out to the FBI, what they're saying is essentially referring everything to the New Mexico State Police, despite the fact that they are the ones spearheading the bigger investigation here, Hallie.
Camila Bernal, thank you very much for that reporting and for staying on top of this one. Appreciate it. When we come back, some of the new turmoil and new reporting we're getting inside CBS, why a top correspondent for 60 Minutes is accusing the news division leader of murdering the show, his words. Plus, how police in Pennsylvania say one woman used kids to steal from Wawa. That's next. Two popular left-wing political commentators have now been barred from entering the UK for what they say are their criticisms of Israel. We're talking about the host of the YouTube series The Young Turks and Hassan Piker, progressive influencers with millions of viewers between them. They were supposed to head over to the UK for some speaking gigs this week, but then their travel authorizations were revoked. Now, the British government says it's because their presence in the UK may not be conducive to the public good. No explicit mention of Israel there. It comes after Britain banned Ye, the rapper formerly known as Kanye West, of course, from coming a couple months back after his anti-Semitic social media posts and songs. Sahil Kapoor is covering this one for us. This is interesting here. What is the UK trying to do? The British government is not saying specifically that it's because of these podcasters' criticism of Israel. That is what these podcasters think.
Yeah, that's right, Hallie. The UK government is not being explicit about what exactly these men did or said that led to this ban. But if we look at the backdrop surrounding all of this, it's not difficult to decode. This comes at a time where advocates for Israel and Jewish groups in the UK, such as the Jewish Leadership Council, were calling for them to be banned, while free speech activists have been condemning this idea. Now, both men responded online. Take a look at what they said. Hassan Piker saying, quote, "The UK has revoked my visa as well at the behest of Israel." Cenk Uygur saying, quote, "I've been banned for criticizing Israel." By the way, both these tweets got millions and millions of views, Hallie, so you have to wonder if there's a Streisand effect here, where by trying to squelch these men, that they're ultimately reaching an even bigger stage. I reached out to both men. Cenk Uygur said the UK did not specify to him, even privately, why his visa was revoked. He said, quote, "The UK hasn't told me why they banned me. The Times of London reported that they told them it was because I criticized Israel." He called it Kafka-esque levels of absurdity. And he also cited a Pew poll that showed 60% of Americans have an unfavorable view of Israel, wondering if they too would be banned from entering the UK. Hassan Piker, for his part, responded by sending me this headline in the Times of Israel saying, quote, Jewish groups call on the UK to bar dangerous Hassan Piker amid anti-Semitic attacks. So there's no mystery, at least in the minds of these men, as to why they were banned. Now, of course, both of them emphatically deny the claims that they're anti-Semitic, that they say their criticisms are about the government of Israel, not Jewish people, and they say what's dangerous and wrong is to conflate the two things, Hallie.
Sahil Kapoor. Sahil, thanks for being the tip of the spear in our reporting on that. Interesting stuff. We'll keep an eye on it. Before I let you go, though, just because we referenced it, the Kanye thing. I mean, we covered that on this show when it happened. And at this moment, you have to wonder about the free speech discussion that's happening on both sides of the Atlantic.
Absolutely, and I think it'll crank up to an even greater degree in the UK, which of course doesn't have the type of stringent First Amendment protections that we do. That's an ongoing discussion. Apart from Kanye West, there were others. A group of 11 of them, according to BBC News, 11 people who were banned from the UK on similar grounds, who were called far-right agitators by the Prime Minister Keir Starmer, including the US-based anti-Islam activist Valentina Gomez. So this is rare, but not unprecedented for the UK to do something like this, Hallie.
Sahil, thank you. Appreciate you. NBC News covers hundreds of other stories every day, and because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. Out of our Northeast Bureau, police in Pennsylvania want to find this woman who allegedly used kids to steal from a Wawa. We don't know whose kids they are, but she apparently put some orders in online. The kids then took the stuff but never ended up paying. Workers at the store in Hatboro tell our Philly station they've seen her do this before. They want people to help them track her down. Out of our Western Bureau, look at this, the surveillance video from the Bay Area. A car here crashing into a restaurant in the middle of the night. Fortunately, nobody was hurt. Nobody was inside the restaurant. Police say at this point, they've got the car, but not the driver. They are still on the lookout for that person, considering all that damage. And out of our Midwest Bureau, Nebraska health officials say 2 people who'd been quarantining for hantavirus are going to finish out their quarantine back home. The 2 were on that now infamous cruise where the outbreak happened. They've been in Nebraska about a month. They're going to get around-the-clock surveillance until later on in June. Officials say there is no immediate risk to the public now that those 2 are home. Also tonight, more turmoil for CBS News after a top correspondent for 60 Minutes apparently accused the network's editor-in-chief of, I'm quoting here, of murdering the show during a staff meeting today. According to a source in the room, Scott Pelley said that editor-in-chief Barry Weiss was brought in to kill 60 Minutes and is doing exactly that. Pelley also blasted the show's new EP, executive producer, telling Nick Bilton he thinks he has slender qualifications for the job. Pelley and reps for CBS did not immediately return our request for comment, but that's as a bunch of network's journalists wrote a letter to Paramount's CEO today, urging him to send a clear message to staff, viewers, and the public that David Ellison respects editorial independence and press freedom. Chloe Malas is joining us now. And lest people think we're doing some sort of navel-gazing media segment, listen, 60 Minutes gets big numbers. They are I think the top-rated news broadcast in the country consistently. They rank right up there with live sports events for things that people watch on Sunday nights. And this meeting has real drama, apparently. There was a face-to-face confrontation. The boss left after 15 minutes. It was very it was spicy.
Hallie, it almost sounds like an episode ripped straight from the script of Succession. So you have Nick Bilton, who was appointed last week as the executive producer of 60 Minutes, having this meeting with staffers. And in that meeting, NBC News actually spoke to somebody who attended that meeting today, and they wanted their name to be kept anonymous for obvious reasons. But they said that Nick Bilton was really confronted by Scott Pelley, who has been a veteran journalist for decades, and he's been with 60 Minutes for 22 years. In this meeting, he supposedly confronted Bilton over the firings of those correspondents that you mentioned, as well as the executive editor of the show, who had actually been named the EP of the show last year temporarily. And in this meeting, he allegedly said that Barry Weiss, who is the CBS News editor-in-chief, was, quote, murdering the venerable news magazine. And in this, he, allegedly, Pelley interrupted and said, she is murdering 60 Minutes. She does not love this place. She was brought in to kill it, and she has been doing exactly that. Barry Weiss was not in the room, Hallie, but NBC News, we've reached out to CBS for comment, as well as Scott Pelley, but clearly things got heated. But I just want to point out that before the meeting ended, Bilton, who remained cool, according to our source, during the entire meeting, said, and he looked straight ahead. This source says he said, "Enjoy the bagels," before he left the room. I guess there were bagels in the room.
Is that a
Hallie.
euphemism, or was that okay? He meant
I think
the
there were
actual
some
breakfast
real
foods
bagels
that
in that meeting, Hallie. Yeah.
There's a piece of this, Chloe, that we've got to pull on the thread of, which I think is obvious but worth repeating here, which is the political overlay to this, right? I mean, President Trump has been frustrated with 60 Minutes in the past. He has posted, multiple Truth Socials over the course of multiple years, frustrated with the coverage that he feels like he's getting on 60 Minutes. That dynamic has also been called into question by some who are upset by what they think and what they see Barry Weiss doing here.
Right. So let's just talk about the fact that David Ellison, who runs CBS, he runs Paramount Skydance, and he's in the middle of this merger with Warner Brothers Discovery. His father, Larry Ellison, is one of Trump's biggest and most lucrative supporters. And so many people feel as though he put in Barry Weiss to run CBS News because he was trying to curry favor with President Trump. There is no evidence from NBC News that has happened, but you've seen how Stephen Colbert is no longer having his late show at CBS. Many people feel as though that had political implications there, which CBS said was only a financial decision. But again, a lot of questions as to what is going on within CBS News and the broader company as a whole. Hallie.
Chloe Malas, thank you very much for watching it all. We'll see how this one goes. Appreciate it. Still to come, why the real MVP of the upcoming NBA Finals could be somebody off the court. We'll explain. Okay, NBA Finals. Wednesday night. New York Knicks, San Antonio Spurs. But the real MVP may be somebody off the court. Apparently this guy, WWE star and comedian Danhausen, put a curse on the Knicks before the playoffs this year. I'm just telling you, I don't know, I'm not saying you have to believe it. I'm just going to tell you about the stats. They won one game after the Hex, but lost the next two by 1 point both times. That's the first time that's ever happened in NBA history. Now, he lifted the curse 2 weeks later in a cameo video.
The New York Knicks, I guess you could be uncursed temporarily until I decide otherwise. Temporary truce of some sort.
Okay. I'm not saying it's related, but the Knicks have been on an 11-game winning streak ever since then. If they win the finals, it's going to end this crazy drought, 50-year title drought, right? Think like Red Sox, Cubs, baseball. That's the kind of thing we're talking about here. That's the scope and that's the scale. Sam Brock is covering this one for us. Curse aside, convince me, a non-New Yorker here, that the hype around the Knicks and like all the attention and all that is not simply because people in New York love to talk about things in New York. Respectfully.
Sure. But respectfully, can Danhausen please just leave the Knicks uncursed? That's all I'm asking here, Hallie. In terms of the context for this, Victor Wembanyama, I'm going to convince you right now, he's the emerging center for the San Antonio Spurs. There's a few athletes in the history of sports, Tiger Woods in golf, Shohei Ohtani in Major League Baseball. Athletes do things and you're like, I can't process what I'm watching right now. Victor Wembanyama is going to be the face of the NBA. This is a 7'5" Frenchman who's taking step-back threes and breaking guys down off the dribble. He's chasing players up and down the court and throwing his arm up near the hoop and affecting the trajectory of a three-point shot 25 feet away. There is no other secret weapon. And look at that image, the emotion, how much he cares. He just took all of his teammates around his arms. The human interest component of this, sky high. Now, you also did mention the Knicks. So there is a reason that MSG is the world's most famous arena. It's not Paycom Center in Oklahoma City. It's not the Frost Bank Center in San Antonio. It's in New York, Hallie. This team and its passionate fan base has just watched the Knicks go on an 11-game winning streak that is incomparable statistically. In the history of the NBA, they have won by 262 points over that 11 games. Their average margin of victory, 23.8 points. It has never been done in the NBA. The synchronicity, the togetherness of all of these parts. Look, they're even painting the subway blue and orange. You got to love this city, don't you? I know you feel the same way, Hallie.
Yeah. I mean, I'm into it. It's not the Philadelphia Eagles, but I can get behind an interesting series of games as we will be covering the NBA Finals. I will also note, though, that hasn't the winning streak also been consistent ever since Carl Anthony Towns appeared with Anne Hathaway in The Devil Wears Prada too. So can Anne Hathaway also be a good luck charm here?
That could be coincidental. I think it's OG Anunoby, actually, that got the boost from Anne Hathaway. But let's talk about the price on the tickets. It's somewhere in the range average of $7,000 for a ticket at MSG. The courtside seats are approaching $300,000+. Good luck with that. You could buy a house or you could buy seats at MSG. Pick your choice.
Are you going? Are you going to try to get a sign?
I don't have $300,000. I'm going to try to go with the credential, though.
All right, very good. Sam Brock, we'll look for you reporting live Wednesday night from the NBA Finals. Sam, appreciate you. Thank you so much. And thank you, as always, for watching. That is a wrap for this hour. This is HJN on NBC.
We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.